In China today, you see that even at age 1, 2, whatever you do, you can do tailoring, you can do cooking, you can do catering, you can do different things. So that sort of thinking is what's helping, it was guiding our thought process. Maybe by the end of the year, we should be able to have something out for validation. Yes, sir.
Awesome, fantastic. I mean, what more would you expect from an innovative business school like yours? You know, it's all about innovation and not just, reinventing the wheel all the time. Fantastic. So now, a bit away from that, so talking about your GIPD program, which is very fascinating. GIPD, which is very fascinating. Can you tell us about it? And what makes you think that's what our youth and students need?
So JIPED, thank you very much for this question. It's a brilliant question, and we've been working on JIPED now for 2 years. Hopefully, some people are beginning to listen to us. So what is JIPED? JIPED is basically targeting a graduate who should be better utilized in society, but he found himself as a bartender. Is underemployed. A mathematics graduate who should be concerned or who should be very, very useful within the science and technology field is an Uber driver. He's underemployed and is frustrated. He does that for 5-7 years, becomes psychologically demented, becomes depressed. And if you enter his Uber, he will continue to. After some time, his mates have gone far. He joins the gangs, begins to kidnap people for ransom. So what we're saying in JIPED is that we love the educational system. We're not challenging the educational system. We love the educational system that is diverse. Higher education speaks to people in arts, speaks to people in sciences, speaks to people in philosophy. You're brilliant. What we're saying is that the educational system needs to advance a bit further. All right, that there is value in going into a discipline. What I mean by value in going to a discipline is that if I invest 4 or 5 years of my life in reading history, along the way, I will be attached and in love with history. Even if that was not my intention, even if I wanted to read medicine initially. But that investment over time, going to for lectures, passing exams, getting a receipt, so on and so forth, all that iteration over the years will actually make you, I invested in this and I should be able to benefit from it. All right, so you finish, they hand you a certificate, and you suddenly find that, you are running from pillar to post, there's nothing to do. Eventually, you end up, just getting by in life after all that investment. So what we're saying in JIPED is that within the university system, all right, within the higher educational system, we need to bring a crop of professors, crop of lecturers, and certify them JIPED. JIPED is Graduate Innovation Program for Enterprise Development within a discipline. So we have a crop of professors within, for example, social sciences. We should make them JIPED certified, which means that with JIPED certification within the discipline, the final year, at least one semester of the final year should be dedicated to the entrepreneurialization of the discipline. Entrepreneurialization of the discipline basically means that if we take a discipline like English language or English literature, all right, after 4 years or 6 semesters, whatever you want to call it, we dedicate 1 semester where you will now begin to see the entrepreneurial intent of that discipline. There's no academic endeavor that is actually designed for you to go and get a job. It is the colonial system that made it that way. That train people so that they can come and serve us. No. People actually get education so that they can solve societal problems. Go to Socrates, go to Plato, go and understand the essence of what? Philosophy. People came together in the gardens to discuss problems. This is how these disciplines evolved. They discuss problems, they agree on certain things, they go and test it out to make the world a better place. So if you are an English language and in the last semester, we put you through JIPED, through the professors now. We're not saying we want to intervene directly with the professors, no. We want to intervene we're not saying we want to intervene directly with the students. We want within the system for professors to handle it. All right? So if you are an English literature, English language, for example, you will be trained on the art of identifying and recognizing that there's entrepreneurial value in English. You come out understand the entrepreneurial intent of English. How can you commercialize English language? What are the case studies? You understand? How? Having understood the entrepreneurial value of English language, how do you respond for it? How do you pitch? You understand? These things are generic, but they are generic, but in this case, we want you guys to be able to look at it from the prism of somebody who is reading English. So at the end of the day, we want a graduate to put together a project that actually speaks to how he can create value in society, how he can solve problems in society with English language, right? And make money out of it. So when you are finishing, you are coming out with a project. That project is like a business plan. You will not dump it in the wardrobe, in the library. You will carry it. Through the youth service, you begin to look at ways. Let me go to northern Nigeria. Let me set up English camps. Let me teach children how to speak English. Let me go to primary schools. Let me set up English. Let me work with NGOs. Let me look for a donor. Let us, all those things. You begin to see the opportunities around how you can entrepreneurialize English language. So, if you scale it across all disciplines, this is what we're trying to do with JIPED in a nutshell.
That's fantastic. I just look at what you just said. That it's almost like as if the current trend is almost like an extension of the slave trade that used to happen back in those days. So since slavery could not go on again, okay, so let's make people work and be in employment and all of that, and rather than them actually thinking and being able to evolve and be able to impact their society independent of anyone. And that takes us to the next question,
yes, sir.
In terms of collaboration, is there any collaboration or synergy between the KBS, Kaduna Business School, and the Lagos Business School at all? Hello?
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, did you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. You said whether there's synergy between Kaduna Business School and Lagos Business School.
And Lagos Business School, yeah. Do you have collaboration of any sort?
No. We only have collaboration with a branch of Lagos Business School, which is the entrepreneurial arm of Lagos Business called the Enterprise Development Center, EDC, Pan-African. Yes. So the EDC, because of their entrepreneurial inclination, we work together on quite a lot of interventions. One prominent one is the National Accreditation Program for Business Development Service Providers, PDSPs. So if you are a doctor to an entrepreneur, that's what we call a BDS, a Business Development Service Provider, like a doctor to an entrepreneur. So an entrepreneur cannot go to these high-flying consultants to say, help me with my business plan, help me with my cash flow. But we can create small doctors that can solve the problem of MSMEs. So together with the EDC, a branch of Lagos Business School, we are working with the federal government of Nigeria to build a tribe of BDSs. So we are 2 accredited institutions in the country that help to train those people and certify them with a National Business Development Service Provider accreditation license. So without that license, if you practice business development service in this country, is illegal and you can be prosecuted for it. So that's one area where we intervene, where we collaborate. Other areas of collaborations are sometimes we have lecturer exchange. Some of us go to EDC when they have programs in Abuja, they have programs here, and they want us to participate, share professors. Sometimes when we have 1 or 2 things in Lagos or around, we also seek their support and all that. So in a way, we do collaborate from the EDC. But from Lagos Business School, I think the reason why we don't have any signage is because they are more focused on corporate Lagos. And corporate Lagos is a big deal. It's enough food for thought with all the major conglomerates, and the kind of support they get from corporate Lagos. They are vested in their MBA programs and so on and so forth. On this side of the divide, we don't have any corporate Kaduna or corporate. Everything the main corporates are there in Lagos, and the decision making for capacity building is in Lagos. All around here, you have branches or subsidiaries or warehouses and so on and so forth. So we really cannot intervene from that perspective. I mean, we can't synergize from that perspective. So that's really why we don't do much with the Lagos business. Otherwise, I think at the end of the day, our values are similar, our thought process is similar, and really at the end of the day, we just want to make the country a better place. They are looking at it from a corporate perspective, and we are looking at it from a broader based perspective where we're able to include the young people. We're also able to support people based on their functional responsibilities, particularly in the public sector, which is where we have more clients.
Fantastic. I would able to want to say that what you're doing with the EDC is enough to chew on because the entrepreneurial development across the country is something that it's not even, it's bigger than the government, it's bigger than any organization, and it's something that collaboratively needs to be attacked headlong.
Absolutely.
Because that is basically how we can get out of our current economic mess as a country, as a people, and even culturally as well.
Absolutely.
So you are a man of many parts, sir, and having been a banker for many years and an economic advisor to Kaduna State government and also the World Bank, amongst other things. Tell us about your appointment as the Vice President of the Business Development Africa at the Transcontinental University, Ohio.
Okay, so with the Transcontinental University, there's my former professor, Professor Ted Sun, who really is a Chinese American. And during my doctoral program, he was the man who really exposed me, should I say, he expanded my academic prowess. One of the things that he showed me was the importance of thinking systemically. I just want to quickly use that as an intro. That many of our challenges as a people, as a country, is the fact that we are over-linear. So let me give you a quick example. There are no jobs, so create a fund, throw money at it, and then create jobs. No, there is a systemic relationship that, if well managed on its own, the system will begin to create jobs. If you throw money at a problem, what then happens is that the problem will manifest itself around extracting money from you. So it will recalibrate itself, and then tomorrow you have to throw money at it again. Talk about banditry and Boko Haram. The reason why it persists is because a lot of our managers, in fact, 100% of our managers, do not understand what it means to be systemic in the thought process. They're very linear. So buy guns, buy this, buy that, shoot, kill all the bandits, report it in the news, and then tomorrow another set of bandits have come. How many will you kill?
I think. Hello.
It's frozen again.
Yeah, it's frozen again. So I'm sure you're back now.
Very interesting perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
By the way, things.
Hello. Okay, welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Sometimes Zoom, experiences one or two hitches.
Yes, this is part of the innovation that we ought to have developed within our system. This conversation now is going from Nigeria all the way to the US and coming back to us. And we should be able to run this thing within our system directly, within our own network. Well, it is
absolutely. It is what it is. So I was just about to share with you the policy analysis of the unintended consequences. So sometimes I laugh when I see our Nigerian people. I just say, in the Bible, there's a popular verse that says, forgive them, for they know not what they do. The lack of knowledge is why the man perishes, like dust. You cannot come up with a policy, and because you think you think from your own nuanced perspective that is a good policy, that it will work. We call it fixes that fail. So what you do is to, first of all, once there's a policy, say, let's look at an intervention. Badagry, Sokoto Expressway, whatever you want to call it, anything. Just randomly pick up a good policy. That, okay, yes, transportation, this and that. Yes, but the starting point of that policy analysis is what are the unintended consequences. It is by analyzing the unintended consequences that you reduce what I call the negative feedback. Hello, are you with me?
Yes, sir. So we reduce the negative feedback.
Yeah, so that you are actually prepared for what I call the fallouts. So what then happens is that if you come up and you did not do the analysis of the unintended, you soon discover that when those unintended consequences emerge, they must come. You can't run away from it. You start fighting, you start struggling, you start becoming defensive. Before you know it, you spend 4 years defending, the policy over. The time your tenure is over, you could not implement it. It becomes white elephant, they call it. It just sits down there, maybe some money has gone, and then we couldn't implement it. So Ohio State University is a transcontinental university. Is Tedson's approach to building on systemic thought process. So Tedson designed a specialized university. It's not really a degree award. Yes, they award degrees, but it's not the conventional, university. So the whole approach is to bring several disciplines, bring an MBA, bring a doctorate, but train them from the point of view of approaching life from the systemic approach. But because the entire academic curriculum across the world is not just a Nigerian problem, it's based on linearity. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. We don't learn how to look at things from a holistic perspective. So that's why we teamed up with Tedson and we created the whole idea of transcontinental. And I support them significantly in doing a lot of work in Africa. We are getting a few executives now to begin to see things from that angle, and it's usually very revealing when you now begin to see that, oh really, I didn't think about this. So at some point in time when we have time, I'll be happy to take you through maybe a 2-day systems thinking course, and I'm sure a lot of things will change in EduTimes.
Awesome. We look forward to that. We really look forward to that. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, so that's how we started the Transcontinental University.
Oh, that's good. All right. So to the next one, coming back home to Nigeria and Africa, the SDG and the AFTA, which is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, are good for Nigeria and Africa for both national and continental development. Okay, stemming from the Transcontinental University conversation we just had just now. So how is Kaduna Business School taking advantage of these programs, which is the SDG and the AFTA? How is Kaduna Business School taking advantage of these programs and agreements to enhance the curriculum, thereby improving learning outcomes and improving regional development and economic advancements.
Fantastic. One of the things, let me start with the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Really, again, the sustainable development goals, if you ask me, I'll tell you again, it's a slap on the face of leaders. What these people, these big Oimbo boys are saying, essentially, is that you guys cannot think about your own sustainability. Let's think about it for you and then push it so that you can begin to drive it. Look at poverty, look at maternal health care, look at all this and all that. Look at education. That's what they're saying, essentially. That since you guys cannot drive the process, let us create a narrative so that at least you can begin to have those conversations. No problem. The domestication of the SDGs is very important. I remember very well as economic advisor, and even subsequently in a lot of things I do, JIPED, for example, the SDG is a critical element of JIPED. So already through that curriculum, we're pushing the SDGs into the university system. That if you are studying biochemistry, if you are studying geology, and you're not relating it to an element of the SDGs, then you cannot connect to the global wave of thought around that discipline. So there's a compulsory module in our JIPED program that actually exposes you to how the world is thinking about the generic problems that the world is facing. And what is a university? A university is a problem-solving outfit. That's why they call us eggheads. We're not piece of paper manufacturers, and we're not supposed to be creating people. We're supposed to be creating employment, not jumping from pillar to post begging for jobs. So that is my own notion about SDGs. We have to domesticate it within the institutions. Let our younger people own it. Let value creators own it, and then let them begin to see from what they are learning, how can they contribute. That for me is how you can unravel or how you can spread, the gospel of the SDGs. Coming to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, we've been having conversations lately, and what I'm understanding personally, I want to bring my own personal understanding to the space. Interesting. But if you look at the developmental arrangements for Africa, okay, we are not well favored from the point of view of the fact that there are certain IMF or World Bank conditionalities attached to the fact that a lot of countries take loans, and once you take those loans, you have to create certain make certain economic sacrifices. Devaluation of your currencies, concentration of primary products, and so on and so forth. You'll see that the arrangement actually makes Africa or Africans or poor countries really to revert back to the primaries. When you revert back to the primaries, again, you favor the industrialization of the West. If you look at any arrangement, just study any of the trade agreements or trade arrangements based or trade conditionalities of IMF facilities and so on. You'll understand where I'm coming from. But so for the continental trade agreement to really be effective, we must be able to produce at the higher level of the value chain. So it is easier now for you to sell. This is a cup I'm holding here. When you degrade this cup back to the elemental level, you probably have some sand. Okay, now the economics is more favored for me to sell sand, for me to exchange sand, for me to trade in sand than for me to trade in cups. Because if I take a cup outside this country, the tariff arrangement does not favor me. There's a deliberate tariff arrangement that destabilizes Africans. So we cannot really take things out. But if you look at it in terms of the tariffs around the primary raw materials, it's almost zero. So I can't really compete. Okay. Now, for us in Africa, if we say, okay, we want to limit this trade, to the continent, around which currency are we going to coalesce? If we had an understanding of a uniform currency on the continent around which we can all coalesce and say, okay, this is the continental currency, then, it's very easy for us to create that exchange. Trade is a function of currency. Now, if the currencies are divided across the Francophone have their own, the other countries have their own, and at the end of the day, all of us have to dollarize, before we make it continental, then again, you begin to introduce what I call disincentives. So it's a good idea. Still very much in its infancy. All right, but I think the African Union still has a lot more work to do, in trying to identify, and I can make a recommendation here, maybe a specific coin, a specific crypto attached to transactions that facilitate trade within the agreement, within the continental agreement. That makes it very easy. You understand that, okay, we're going to be using this, whether you want to call it after coin, whatever you want to call it, this is the value. And if I have 10 after coins, a Kenyan has 10 after coins, we know where we're speaking in terms of after coins, and then that facilitates the process. All right. But what is more? The access routes within the continent is still very on trade friendly. So I can't fly to Ivory Coast now easily. I can't fly to Morocco now easily. In some cases, I must go to France, to Charles de Gaulle before I come back to Algeria. We don't have train routes. Now, if you look at the original arrangements, even from the Royal Dutch Company, when they were in South Africa, when they came into Nigeria, the Royal Niger Company, Nigeria, if you look at all those companies when they were in India, what was the first thing? They were here basically to trade. What was the first thing they put together? Access routes, rail tracks, roads. All those roads were not for us. All those roads, those trades, they were creating arteries, veins to facilitate what? Trade. So if you have AfTA, and we are talking of an African Continental Free Trade Agreement, where is the freedom to trade where there's no access? Food for thought.
Awesome. We learn every day. I just learned something that's never really occurred to one. I actually didn't think of all of this in this light. And I watched a video of a lady some weeks back.
Yes, sir.
Who actually drove.
Yes, from London.
Driver from London to Lagos.
Lagos, yes.
Her trip from London to France, to Spain, all the way to Morocco, coming to West Africa was fantastic. But the moment she hits the Gambia, Senegal, Ivory Coast, that corridor coming to, it was hellish for her.
Chaotic.
It was chaotic, it was terrible. it was what actually gave her the worst experience of the trip. And so, based on what you're talking about now, you've more or less actually, hit that point again that we lack access. We cannot connect with one another very well. We have not done those things that helps us. We've not done those things that connects us as a people for us to trade amongst ourselves. So the bottleneck is actually very, very huge.
Somebody's listening. Just give me this. Yeah.
So
go free.
We'll wrap up now. So looking at everything we've discussed today and all of the things that you have said, from the business perspective, the educational perspective, from an entrepreneurial perspective and all of that, where do you see Nigeria in the next 10 to 15 years? And how do you think we can get there?
Ade, is it Ade I should call you Adebi? I like to call the full name. Adebi, I know. I'm good. I just wanted to, let me call your name. Because I think maybe when you interview somebody, along the way you begin to poke into the person's mind. So one of the things I do is I kind of work as a futurist. I think in futures, and each time I'm talking to my clients, I say, look, today is gone. Yesterday has happened. All we have is the future. It starts tomorrow. The first thing you want to ask yourself is, what are the trends? What are the trends? And you can easily break it down economically, socially, politically, technologically. When you look at, let's take technology, for example. Nobody needs to tell you that there'll soon be a what I call ubiquitous role of artificial intelligence in all our lives. It's going to take over governments. It's going to take over elections. It's going to take over education. It's going to even take over the fundamentals on which we run our economies and even organizations. You don't need to be a scientist. But what I think is a critical uncertainty for Africa, for Nigeria, really, is to begin to ask yourself, what are the weak signals? Weak signals. Let me give an example of weak signal. Not many people realize when Tinubu was an activist in the times of liberation of democracy with the late MK Abiola, that he was potentially a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. See, then he was a weak signal. Today he's a president. So let's begin to ask ourselves, what are the weak signals? Positive weak signals. Okay? Politically, we can see along the African continent that there is a renaissance of what I call nationalism. Particularly the French side. And they are becoming more and more backed. They are looking more towards the Russians than towards the French. And these are the people that form our entire neighboring, economic atmosphere. What's that telling you? Those are weak signals. So for economic arrangements with the West, we have to also begin to consider, the conflicts, because for an economy to thrive is trade. So if all those countries are now going to begin to look towards Russia, would they look to us? What kind of alignments do we need to create? How do we begin to see the implications of these trends? All right. Now, technology, what are the weak signals? Whether you're a lawyer today, whether you are a agriculturist today, whatever you are as a professional today, you must begin to look at things from the point of view of what technology. How has that been embedded? That's a mixed signal, but in the next 5-10 years it becomes a reality. How has that been embedded in the curriculum or the disciplines or even adult learning? Okay. Another interesting thing that we need to begin to look at now is there's nothing like retirement anymore. That's a big signal. You can't reach 50, 60 now and say I've retired. No. What are we doing in terms of education, re-educating people in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s? All right. Otherwise, they'll soon become obsolete and they become a liability. So we have to also begin to do something in terms of educating our adults so that they can reprogram them for the new economy, what I call the AI economy. So I will not make any prediction, but when I speak to you in terms of trends, events, and development, you begin to see yourself that I need to make some adjustments. It's just to introduce the conversation around the big signals, and then you begin to see, okay, this is what it's likely to. So I always like to put my audience in a state of mind where they can see alternative futures. They can see certain possibilities. Oh, this looks like a scenario. This looks like a scenario. This looks like a scenario. So what do we need to do in the event of this? How do we need to prepare? How do we need to take advantage of the signals?
Awesome.
Thank you.
The weak signals speaks volumes. This philosophy of the weak signals speaks volumes. It's almost like just giving us, those days in school, they just give you, if the teacher is going to give you a test, they'll give you 2 examples and give you 8 questions. Go and solve it yourself. So those 2 is enough to actually carry you through the remaining 10 questions and,
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate this. And the truth is that we're going to have a version 2.0 in the near future because we've not exhausted all of these. EduTimes Africa is a collaborative platform where conversations like this has to continue so that we can sustain our development goals. We do not have to wait for people to come and be snapping us to tell us what to do. We need to actually, take the conversation forward ourselves. Thank you so much, sir. Daps, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dahiru.